In 1912, a French expedition stumbled upon something beneath the ice of Rothschild Island that would be buried in classified archives for over a century. Massive stone structures that shouldn't exist, architecture that predates known civilization, and evidence of a global empire that official history refuses to acknowledge. The expedition leader, Jean-Baptiste Charcot, reported crystalline spires emerging from glacial melt. His crew documented geometric patterns carved into bedrock. They found metallurgic compositions that wouldn't be replicated until the 1950s. Within 6 months, every member of that expedition was either dead or institutionalized. Their findings were seized by 3 governments simultaneously, and Rothschild Island became a restricted zone that remains off-limits to this day. What did they actually find beneath that ice? Why does the same family name appear in both the island's designation and the banking empire that financed its exploration? And how does this discovery connect to the worldwide reset that erased an entire civilization from our timeline? If you're still watching, hit subscribe. This goes deeper than you think. The official story says Rothschild Island was discovered during Charcot's 1908 expedition, named after Baron Edouard de Rothschild, who funded it. Standard procedure. Rich banker pays, gets his name on a map. But Charcot's published journals make no mention of landing there. His route never passed within 200 miles of the island's coordinates. The French Hydrographic Service credits his expedition, but Charcot's declassified field notes reference a second, unscheduled voyage in 1912. No government sanctioned it. No institution endorsed it. No public records exist beyond 3 journal entries and 1 decoded telegram. The telegram was sent from Punta Arenas, Chile, February 3, 1912, addressed to Baron Edouard de Rothschild. Encrypted, not broken until 1967. The decoded text read, "Island structures confirmed, crystalline formations intact. Harvest commences March." Harvest, not excavation. Harvest. 3 weeks later, Charcot's ship departed with 14 men. None were his usual scientists, engineers, metallurgists, 2 listed as antiquarians. The ship vanished for 41 days. When it reappeared, only 9 crew remained. Charcot looked 20 years older. His hair had gone white. 5 missing men declared lost to glacial incidents. No investigation launched. Within 6 months, all 9 survivors showed progressive cognitive deterioration. 4 institutionalized, 2 suicides. Charcot suffered seizures and hallucinations until his 1936 death. Physical evidence survived in a Geneva safe deposit box discovered in 2004, registered to a Rothschild trust in 1913 and forgotten. Archivists found 11 glass plate negatives in lead foil, structures emerging from ice, geometric towers reflecting light in impossible patterns. One showed a 15-foot doorway carved with unknown symbols. France classified them immediately. Every access request denied on national security grounds. 3 images leaked, circulated 11 hours before being scrubbed simultaneously. Downloaders reported strange metadata, GPS coordinates for Rothschild Island, February 1912, timestamps, 1 line of text. Pre-Diluvian. Confirm Atlantean concordance. Atlantean. Not hypothetical. Confirmed. Official history claims Antarctica has been frozen for millions of years, nothing beneath the ice except rock and sediment. But that narrative crumbles when you look at the evidence. In 2001, the Peary race map resurfaced in mainstream discussion. Created in 1513, it shows Antarctica's coastline with accurate detail, including bays and inlets currently beneath ice. The source materials came from charts dating back to Alexander the Great. How did ancient cartographers map a continent supposedly undiscovered until 1820? The answer is simple. Antarctica wasn't always frozen. Geological core samples from the Ross Ice Shelf reveal pollen from temperate vegetation, oak trees, ferns. dated to approximately 6,000 years ago, the same time frame attributed to Tartaria's destruction. Mainstream science dismisses this, claiming contamination. They prefer Antarctica was last ice-free 34 million years ago, before humans existed. Except something built structures there. In 1946, Operation High Jump launched, the largest Antarctic expedition in history. 13 ships, 4,700 personnel, Admiral Richard Byrd commanding. Stated mission was research and training. The reality was military incursion, equipped with aircraft carriers and enough firepower to invade a country. Supposed to stay 8 months, returned after 8 weeks with unexplained casualties. Byrd gave a press interview warning America needed to prepare for aircraft that could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. Asked to clarify, he refused and never spoke publicly about Antarctica again. 3 years later, Operation Deep Freeze established permanent US stations and groundwork for the 1959 Antarctic Treaty. That treaty prohibited military activity and restricted vast regions. Rothschild Island falls within restricted zones. So, what's under Rothschild Island? The 1912 photographs showed megalithic construction. Stone blocks fitted with precision rivaling Incan masonry. Crystalline material integrated into stonework matching other alleged Tartarian sites. The buildings weren't shelters. They were machines. St. Petersburg's Winter Palace features copper domes functioning as atmospheric energy collectors. Moscow's Kremlin shows retrofitting covering older infrastructure. Soviet reports describe dismantling energy reception apparatus of unknown origin from buildings between 1920 and 1935. World's fairs showcased buildings supposedly temporary, built in months. Chicago's White City, San Francisco's Panama Pacific Exposition, massive neoclassical palaces. Demolition photographs show solid masonry, stone foundations dozens of feet underground. Workers found rooms that weren't on construction plans. Research argues they weren't built for fairs. They were discovered, rebranded as modern American achievement. If that civilization built globally, why not Antarctica when it wasn't frozen? Evidence suggests a global empire existing during a temperate period before cataclysm triggered climate change. This aligns with cultural myths describing floods, sudden freezes, and destroyed civilizations. What if these were historical records, not myths? The burning of Alexandria, Mayan codices destroyed by conquistadors, Baghdad's 2003 looting. Every library destruction targets ancient knowledge. Texts describing pre-flood civilizations vanish first. This suppression continues. In 1908, Tunguska, Siberia exploded. No crater, no meteorite. Trees at ground zero stood while outer trees flattened radially. Within months, global powers increased polar exploration. Tunguska in 1908, Charcot's Antarctic expedition in 1908, his secret 1912 return. World War I in 1914 distracting while geopolitical restructuring occurred. Russian Revolution 1917, erasing imperial records. Early 1900s events viewed through historical reset. Deliberate Tartaria erasure. Wars were cover for archaeological looting. Rothschild Island sits at the center. If structures beneath ice are real, predating civilization by thousands of years with technological capabilities beyond us, human progress narratives collapse. In 150 years, we went from candlelight to moon landings. We didn't invent these technologies, we reverse engineered them. Tesla claimed visions gave him ideas. His wireless energy designs mirror Tartarian infrastructure. He studied Sanskrit, believed ancient civilizations held lost knowledge. When Tesla died in 1943, FBI seized his papers. Classified. Why classify a discredited inventor unless he threatened narratives? Reich, Keeley, Schauberger all worked with atmospheric energy, resonance, geometric amplification. All shut down. Free energy makes fossil fuels obsolete. Power structures lose control. People might find Antarctic ruins. Rothschild Island at 70 degrees south intensifies electromagnetic conditions. Polar positioning would maximize atmospheric energy collection. Ancient polar maps weren't random. They mapped energy infrastructure. The Great Pyramid sits at 29.9792 degrees north. Speed of light, 299,792,458 meters per second. Aligns with true north within 1/15th degree. Perimeter divided by twice height equals pi. Granite from 500 miles away, fitted with thousandth inch precision. Modern engineers can't replicate this with copper tools, yet it's called a tomb despite no mummy. No hieroglyphics. It wasn't a tomb. Machu Picchu blocks fit paper tight. Easter Island Moai weigh 80 tons. Göbekli Tepe predates agriculture at 9,600 BCE. All show megalithic construction, astronomical alignments, geometric coordinate patterns. Mainstream calls them isolated primitive achievements. Simpler explanation. They were connected globally. The Antarctic Treaty requires unanimous agreement from all signatory nations for restricted zone research. No single country explores without US, Russia, Britain, France approval. The continent is locked down. Who benefits? The banking families funding polar exploration. Rothschild, Rockefeller, Morgan. Their names appear in expedition funding, World's Fairs, artifact acquisitions. They're collecting technology. In 1953, a Swedish, British, Norwegian expedition found coal showing mining evidence, geometric cuts, uniform patterns, metal debris. All three nations classified findings. 1970s expeditions found mine entrances sealed with explosives. What else was in those mines? The same year mines sealed, the Antarctic Treaty entered force. In 2016, Buzz Aldrin tweeted from Antarctica, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." Deleted within hours. Aldrin was there visiting stations at age 86. Immediately hospitalized after returning for lung fluid. Blamed on altitude. Antarctica is sea level. Aldrin had been to space. Underwater sites off Cuba show structures at 2,000 feet requiring construction when seas were lower over 10,000 years ago. Follow-up expeditions cancelled. Japan's Yonaguni shows submerged terraces, walls, uniform steps called natural erosion. These sites share a timeline. Land during the Ice Age when seas were 400 feet lower. That age ended 11,600 years ago with rapid warming flooding coastlines. Every flood myth dates here. If civilizations existed before that flood, then Antarctica's role clarifies. When the Ice Age ended, most warmed. Antarctica cooled. A polar shift or meteor triggered reversal. A temperate continent froze rapidly, burying structures before dismantling. Perfectly preserved. Pre-flood civilization frozen in time. That's what Charcot found in 1912. Not ruins, intact structures emerging from temporary melt. Proof everything we've been told is wrong. The response was immediate and coordinated. Within months, global powers mobilized to ensure those structures would remain hidden. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 provided cover for massive resource reallocation. Nations that should have been enemies cooperated behind the scenes to establish control over Antarctic exploration. And the Rothschild family, having financed the discovery, ensured their interests were protected through the very treaty system that would later lock down the continent. This isn't speculation. Follow the money. Baron Edouard de Rothschild didn't just fund Charcot's expedition. He funded archaeological digs in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and South America throughout the early 1900s. His family's banking empire financed the construction of railways, power plants, and industrial infrastructure across Europe and the Americas. And in every case, they acquired artifacts and technologies that disappeared into private collections, never to be seen by the public. The Rothschild family isn't unique in this. The Rockefellers funded expeditions to Tibet in the 1930s searching for ancient manuscripts and relics. The Carnegie Institution funded early genetics research alongside archaeological surveys, looking for connections between ancient civilizations and modern populations. These weren't academic pursuits. They were intelligence operations designed to locate and secure anything that could disrupt the carefully constructed narrative of linear human progress. Because if people understood that civilization rises and falls in cycles, that we've been to these heights before and lost it all, They might start questioning the systems that control them now. They might realize that the power structures aren't leading us toward progress. They're preventing us from reclaiming what we once had. The technology exists. Free energy is possible. We've built it before. The ruins prove it. But that technology would make centralized power structures obsolete. No one could control energy if it's freely available from the atmosphere. No one could control populations if they didn't depend on fossil fuels, food distribution networks, and financial systems. So the ruins stay buried, the Antarctic ice remains undisturbed, and researchers who get too close are discredited, defunded, or worse. This isn't just about Antarctica, it's about a pattern of control that extends across every continent. When you map the locations where Rothschild interests have intersected with archaeological discoveries, a clear picture emerges. Egypt's Valley of the Kings, Mesopotamian excavations in Iraq, the Mayan sites of Central America. In each case, significant artifacts disappeared into private collections. Government funding conveniently dried up for independent researchers. And the official narrative shifted to emphasize primitive cultures stumbling upon isolated achievements. The same banking empire that financed the exploration of Rothschild Island also financed the construction of the modern world's infrastructure. They funded both sides of wars. They established central banks. They created the financial systems that every nation now depends on. And at every step they acquired something else. Not just wealth or political influence, but knowledge. Ancient knowledge, technology from civilizations that supposedly never existed. Think about the timing. The Federal Reserve was established in 1913, just 1 year after Charcot's secret expedition to Rothschild Island. The same families involved in Antarctic exploration were the same families pushing for centralized banking control. Coincidence? Or were they positioning themselves to control the global economy in preparation for something bigger? World War I erupted in 1914. Millions died, empires collapsed, and in the chaos, archaeological sites across Europe and the Middle East were systematically looted. Museums acquired collections under murky circumstances. Private vaults filled with artifacts that the public would never see. Official explanations called it the fog of war. But the pattern was too organized, too deliberate. The League of Nations formed after the war, then the United Nations, international bodies that could coordinate global policy. Antarctica fell under international jurisdiction. No single nation could claim it. But certain families, through their influence over multiple governments, could effectively control access to the entire continent. This is the real power structure. Not governments, not elected officials, but dynastic families who have maintained control for centuries by controlling both money and knowledge. They don't need to own Antarctica. They just need to ensure that no one else can access what's buried there without their approval. And that approval has been denied to every independent researcher who has tried to investigate Rothschild Island. Environmental concerns, treaty obligations, logistical impossibilities. But the island remains off limits because of what's underneath. Consider what else has been restricted over the past century. The full details of Operation High Jump, the photographs from the 1912 expedition. Ground-penetrating radar surveys from the 1990s and 2000s, satellite imagery of specific coordinates, even academic papers discussing Antarctic geological anomalies have been pulled from publication or heavily redacted. The suppression follows a pattern. Anything providing evidence of advanced pre-flood civilization gets buried. Anything challenging the narrative of linear human progress gets dismissed as pseudoscience. Anyone persisting in asking questions gets labeled a conspiracy theorist. But the evidence keeps accumulating. You can classify documents, seal archives, discredit researchers, but you can't stop the ice from melting, and you can't stop people from noticing the inconsistencies. Look at what happened to the crew of Charcot's 1912 voyage. 5 men died during the expedition. 4 more went insane. Charcot himself never recovered. What did they experience on Rothschild Island? What did they see inside those structures that shattered their minds? Some researchers argue they encountered something still active, Not just ruins, but technology that was still functioning after thousands of years. Energy systems that hadn't been shut down. Or something biological, something preserved in the ice that woke up when the structures were disturbed. This theory gains weight when you examine other Antarctic incidents. In 1961, a Soviet drilling team at Vostok Station reported strange sounds beneath the ice. Low-frequency vibrations not matching geological activity. Sound stopped when drilling suspended, resumed when it continued. Team leader requested site abandonment per KGB documents. Denied. Within a week, 3 members suffered psychological breakdowns. Official report blamed isolation. Journal entries describe voices, whispers from the ice. In 2001, drilling at Lake Vostok discovered liquid water beneath 13. 0 feet of ice. Temperature above freezing. High oxygen concentrations suggested active biological processes or reactions. Drilling stopped before reaching water, officially preventing contamination. Unofficially, because something emitted a magnetic field interfering with equipment. The lake has been off limits since. Satellite imagery shows Russian facilities near Vostok not on public maps. Thermal imaging reveals enormous power draw. What are they doing? What did they find? And more importantly, how does Lake Vostok connect to Rothschild Island? The lake sits at coordinates 77 degrees south, 105 degrees east. Rothschild Island sits at 69 degrees south, 72 degrees west. They're on opposite sides of the continent. But if you draw lines connecting major Antarctic anomalies, Vostok, Rothschild Island, the Ellsworth Pyramids, the Nazi base locations, and the areas with the highest magnetic field distortions, they form a pattern, a grid. The same grid pattern that appears when mapping megalithic sites globally, the same grid that ley line researchers have documented, the same grid that appears in ancient texts describing the layout of Atlantis and other pre-flood civilizations. Antarctica isn't just one site, it's the keystone in a global energy network. And Rothschild Island, positioned where it is, would have been a critical node in that network, possibly a control center, or a power generation hub, which explains why it's so heavily restricted, why the island's name connects to the family that financed its discovery, and why every attempt to return there has been blocked by international treaty. The structures beneath Rothschild Island aren't just evidence of Tartaria, they're functional technology, and someone knows how to use them. Consider the surge in Antarctic activity over the past decade. In 2016, John Kerry visited during the US election. In 2017, Patriarch Kirill made his first Antarctic trip. In 2018, nations announced permanent bases in previously unoccupied regions. In 2020, during global lockdowns, Antarctic stations reported their busiest year despite worldwide travel restrictions. What are they doing? Climate research doesn't explain military-grade infrastructure, restricted airspace, satellite imagery deliberately degraded. Try it yourself. Zoom in on Rothschild Island. Low-resolution imagery, blurred by cloud cover not matching weather data. Zoom in on McMurdo Station. High resolution showing individual buildings. This isn't technical limitation. It's deliberate. Early 20th century maps show more detail than modern maps in certain regions. Islands from the 1920s are missing from current databases, coastlines redrawn, landmasses relabeled or removed, historical revisionism in real time, erasing evidence, rewriting maps. Researchers who notice get marginalized, but the truth surfaces. Literally. Climate change melts Antarctic ice at unprecedented rates, glaciers stable for millennia carving icebergs the size of cities. As ice recedes, things appear. In 2018, a crack in Larsen Sea ice shelf created a 2,000 square mile iceberg. It exposed bedrock unseen for 120,000 years. Observers reported geometric patterns, lines too straight, shapes too regular. NASA photographed the area, classified. Leaked images circulated before being scrubbed. They showed massive carved surfaces, concentric circles from a central point, patterns resembling ancient labyrinths in Crete and Peru. Official explanation called it glacial striations, marks from ice movement. But striations are random scratches. These were organized, deliberate. Ground-penetrating radar detected anomalies beneath ice-defying geological explanation. Hollow spaces with no caves, metallic signatures with no mining, thermal signatures indicating heat sources that aren't volcanic. Something generates heat under Antarctica. Something artificial. The pieces connect. Rothschild Island, the 1912 discovery, Tartarian history suppression, Antarctic treaty lockdown, current research acceleration. This is the final phase of something that began over a century ago. Complete annexation of our past. Why now? The ice melts. Evidence emerges. They're running out of time to control the narrative. Every year brings more visible structures, more whistleblowers, more leaked documents. The truth is becoming impossible to contain. So what happens next? Continued suppression? Controlled disclosure revealing some truth while hiding the rest? Or activation of technology beneath the ice? The answer might already be unfolding. Strange phenomena reported globally over the past decade tie back to electromagnetic disturbances. Unexplained animal die-offs, earthquake swarms in unusual locations, magnetic field anomalies baffling scientists. In 2019, magnetic north shifted 34 miles in 1 year, the fastest recorded movement. Scientists blamed molten iron flows in Earth's core. They couldn't explain why it accelerated suddenly, or why it coincided with increased Antarctic activity. What if the shifts aren't natural? What if someone is reactivating the global energy grid, testing systems dormant for thousands of years? If Tartarian technology could manipulate electromagnetic fields on planetary scale, then whoever controls it doesn't just control energy, they control weather. Communications. They could trigger disasters or prevent them. They could render military systems obsolete or create weapons making nuclear arsenals look primitive. This isn't speculation about ancient history. This is current geopolitics. This is why nations claiming cooperation in Antarctica simultaneously build military-grade infrastructure in restricted zones. This is why the same families that discovered these structures over a century ago now position themselves at the intersection of technology, finance, and global governance. If Tartarian technology could manipulate electromagnetic fields on planetary scale, reactivating that network could alter weather patterns, trigger seismic events, or far worse, it could be weaponized. History shows what happens when ancient technology falls into the wrong hands. The atomic bomb was based on principles appearing in ancient Sanskrit texts describing weapons called brahmastra, capable of destroying entire armies with fire from the sky. Were researchers reading those texts and reverse engineering them? Nikola Tesla warned humanity wasn't ready for the power his inventions could unleash. He destroyed his own designs for a particle beam weapon because he feared it would be used for war. Within decades of his death, every major power had developed directed energy weapons. The technology from Rothschild Island could make nuclear weapons look primitive. Methods for tapping zero-point energy, for manipulating gravity, for transmitting power wirelessly across continents. Whoever controls that technology controls the world. And the Rothschild family has had a century head start. The island bears their name. Not just a donation acknowledgement, it's a claim, a marker of ownership for whatever was found there. Through the Antarctic Treaty, they ensured no one else could stake a competing claim. But treaties are fragile. As nations realize what's at stake, old agreements might crumble. We could be headed toward a new kind of Cold War. Not over territory or ideology, over ancient technology buried beneath the ice. Or maybe that war has already begun. Maybe it's been ongoing since 1912. Hidden behind world wars, economic collapses and revolutions. A shadow conflict over the remnants of Tartaria. The crew of Charcot's 1912 expedition paid the price for that discovery. They saw something humans weren't meant to see. They touched something we weren't ready to understand. And it destroyed them. But their sacrifice wasn't meaningless. The photographs they took, the samples they collected, the journals they kept, all of it survived in fragments. Pieces of the puzzle scattered across classified archives and forgotten safe deposit boxes, and slowly those pieces are being reassembled. The question isn't whether Tartaria existed. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is what we do with that knowledge now. Do we demand transparency? Do we push for declassification of Antarctic research? Do we question why our history has been rewritten? Or do we accept the official story and let the past stay buried under ice? This choice matters more than most realize. If we accept the lie, if we continue believing human civilization is a steady march from caves to smartphones, then we accept our current limitations as inevitable. We accept that energy must be scarce and controlled. We accept that certain technologies are impossible. We accept the power structures claiming to lead us forward. But if we recognize the truth, if we understand that we've been to these heights before, that our ancestors built structures and wielded technologies we're only now rediscovering, then everything changes. The limitations aren't natural, they're imposed, the scarcity isn't real. It's manufactured. And the power structures aren't leading us anywhere except in circles, ensuring we never fully reclaim what was lost. The ruins in Antarctica are proof that we've done this before, proof that it's possible, proof that the only thing stopping us from achieving it again is deliberate suppression of knowledge by those who benefit from keeping us dependent, divided, and ignorant of our own history. What happened beneath Rothschild Island in 1912 wasn't just a discovery, it was a turning point. The moment when those in power realized they could control not just the present, but the past, and by controlling the past they could shape the future. But the ice is melting, the truth is emerging, and no amount of suppression can stop what's coming to light. The structures are still there, waiting, and eventually everyone will see them.